Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to our class, Life in the Balance, Part 4. What we're going to discuss today is from a Jewish legal perspective, if one has obligation to take prevention for his own health, take care of himself. For instance, today there's a law that when you ride a bicycle, you have to wear a helmet. And the reason for the law is not necessarily to protect that child, but we're worried about if the child or the adult gets hurt, he will strain our medical system. But if there was no issue, there's no concern, as we'll see saying, if there was no concern about harming others, the law, the secular law, won't have an obligation for this kid, for adults to wear helmets. It's completely, you want to wear a helmet, you want to be safe, sure. You don't, it's also fine. Again, the reason is there is a law, but that's just because it affects others. It's concerned with others. So if there's no issue of harming others, do we have an obligation to wear a helmet from a Jewish legal perspective when we ride a bicycle? One, that's in a much smaller scale. And then you have, when it comes to life-threatening issues and life-threatening diseases, do we have an obligation to be proactive and prevent any health hazards to our bodies, to ourselves, to our well-being, from a Jewish legal perspective? There's a famous saying from Benjamin Franklin: an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So the question is, from a Jewish legal perspective, how large is this ounce? In other words, how much do I have to go out of my way to prevent hazards, life-threatening hazards, and even that, and on a smaller scale? We're talking both from a normal perspective. If there's anything, we'll see later what constitutes a danger to a person. Technically, anytime you go out in the street, or anytime you ride a car, or things like that, it could be dangerous. So what defines danger, we'll also talk about. But say what we normally refer to as danger, that possibly could lead to danger. Do I have an obligation to take preventative measures to prevent that danger happening to me? And we're going to contrast secular law versus Jewish law, Jewish law versus secular law. So again, just on a smaller scale, we'll talk about motorcycles, for instance. In secular law, the individual is not accountable to society for his actions as long as they concern the interest of no person but himself. So if a person's not going to strain the medical system, the hospitals and whatnot, by not wearing a helmet, he doesn't have to wear a helmet. Technically, from a secular legal perspective, if you want to bang your head against the wall and hurt yourself, so be it, as long as you don't affect others by physically endangering them or by straining their financial system. So in secular law, the government can pass health-related laws only if they also protect innocent members of society, other innocent members of society. And this became evident during the controversy in the United States about mandatory motorcycle helmet laws. The courts justified these laws because they protected innocent others. If people ride without helmets and they get hurt, society pays for the recovery. Or if a person doesn't So also, if the person doesn't wear a helmet and something hits him, he'll lose control, and he could affect other riders on the highway. So we're always concerned about affecting others. We're not concerned about this person being affected himself. So the law has no bearing on a person to take care of his own health if it doesn't affect others. That's what we have from the secular law. Let's look at it for a moment from the eyes. So that we started that's on a smaller scale. As I mentioned earlier, this is on a smaller scale. Helmet, not life-threatening. It could be life-threatening. It's not directly life-threatening. I'm going to read the op-ed from Angelina Jolie with her BRCA mutation and how it could affect having breast cancer and ovarian cancer, and how it affects from her perspective and from a Jewish legal perspective. So then we'll have the question on a small scale and a larger scale, and then we'll take it to Jewish law. So Angelina Jolie writes, I'm going to read parts from her op-ed. She writes that the truth is that she writes about herself, she carries a faulty gene, the BRCA, which sharply increases her risk of developing breast cancer and ovarian cancer. So her doctors estimated that she had an 87% risk of breast cancer and a 50% risk of ovarian cancer. Although the risks are different in the case of each woman, but that's obviously statistics. Only a fraction of breast cancer results from inherited gene mutation. Those with a defect in the BRCA have a 65% risk of getting it on average. And she writes, once I knew that this was my reality, I decided to be proactive and to minimize the risk as much as I could. And she writes that she made the decision to have a preventative double mastectomy. And it started with the breast, as my risk of breast cancer is higher than her risk of ovarian cancer. And the surgery is more complex. So Angelina Jolie was very proactive. But there was no obligation, no legal obligation for her to be proactive and have a double mastectomy. And some people have the oophorectomy later on. So the question is, from a Jewish legal perspective, once a person, a Jewish lady knows, and it's prevalent in Ashkenazi Jewish women. So once they know that they have this BRCA mutation, do they have an obligation to take preventative measures from a legal perspective, from a Jewish legal perspective? And then if the answer is yes, the question is, do women have the obligation to even check if they have the BRCA mutation? And that's what we want to discuss today. It's not obviously, it's just one example is the BRCA mutation, but on a small scale, it could be helmets. Does a person have an obligation, from a Jewish legal perspective, an obligation to take care of his health and make sure he's in the best possible health he could possibly be? So let's look at this from a Jewish legal perspective. We'll quote, just give me one short second. I just want to. So there's a codifier from Jewish law, a modern day codifier, so to speak. Is a legal codifier for today's issues that come up. Rabbi Shlomo Yosef Zevin. So he writes as follows: Koyach hachayim shel guf ha'adam einenu sheloi shel ha'adam. I want to back up for a moment and apply this actually where he's applying this case is a Shakespeare play where the merchant Venice is a Jewish merchant, the merchant of Venice, a Jewish merchant named Shylock, who demanded that Antonio give him a pound of his flesh for the defaulting on a loan which he was a guarantor. Says he guaranteed to pay a loan for somebody. He was the guarantor. The person defaulted. He defaulted. So Shylock demanded, if you don't have to pay the loan which you committed to, I want a pound of flesh. So that's where this is applied. This law, this message. So he writes as follows. Shlomo Yosef Zev writes, the bottom line is, he writes, a person's life and body do not belong to him. And he says, not only is it forbidden for a person to destroy his life in whole or in part, but also his life does not belong to him in the first place. So it's not like it's yours, but you can't destroy it. It's not yours in the first place. Saying, if you sell, give away, or pledge flesh of your body to be chopped or sliced, barbaric, it is as if he had given away something that it's not his to begin with, and the transaction is void and null from day one. And we say a very famous saying, we say at funerals, Hashem nasan v'Hashem lokach, God gave and God took. He's saying it's not just an expression that we say at funerals, it's a very true and absolute. El Shizui Agdar Savantis, it's defining the reality. The reality is that that God gave you life to protect it. God gave you the body, and it's only on loan for you to protect and to preserve. According to Jewish law, the agreement between Shylock and Antonio is null and void from the start. Even if extracting a slice of living flesh would not endanger the life of the giver, he still can't do it. It's still not yours. How much more so when there's no assurance that it would not result in serious injury or in death. We say it in the Slichot prayer every year in Slichot and Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, in the prayers we say, the soul is yours and the body is yours, is your handiwork. The soul is yours and the body is yours, the property of the blessed Holy One be He. So our neshama and our body both belong to God, and God gave us on loan, gave us the body to our soul, for our soul to protect our body, and vice versa, for the body to fulfill the mission of the soul, as we'll learn later. So it's all alone, and therefore their business deal, so to speak, that they made, Shylock and Antonio, doesn't carry weight from the start. So that's just from day one. I don't want to quote, it's not quoted here, but I want to quote a very famous quote from the Maimonides, the Rambam, in his laws. He writes, "Hayes haguf bari v'shal medarki Hashemu," that a person's body to be healthy, that's a way of serving God. So here we're trying to bring out that it's God's to begin with. You have no right over it, but it's also a person can't serve God if he's not healthy. This is a side point. And he's going to bring another couple of quotes underscoring from other Jewish legal sources that the body doesn't belong to the person. So the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi, quotes in his Code of Jewish Law, he says, Asur lahakes es chaveirei, afilu huneisen le'reshus lahakesei. It is forbidden to hit another person even with the other person's consent. Ki ein la'adam reshus al gufei klal lahakesei le'levaishe le'letzarei b'shum tzar. A person has no authority over his body to grant permission that it be struck, denigrated, or pained. So again, just to underscore the fact that a person, his body is not his; it's on loan. And one other quote from the Talmud, it brings a story of a pious man. There was a pious man who was praying by the roadside. He was traveling. A Roman officer came by and greeted him. But he did not return the greeting because he was in the middle of praying. The officer waited for him to finish his prayer. When the man finished his prayer, the officer said to him, Reika, fool, is it not written in your Torah, take heed and guard your life diligently? You shall watch your lives very well. When I greeted you, why did you not return my greeting? I could have easily decapitated you with my sword. So he's saying to him, you endangered your own life. How come you did not respond? And the truth be told, that the halacha is that if you are praying and a Roman officer as such, who could decapitate you, greets you, you are obliged to respond, to interrupt your prayer and respond, because as he said, you have to protect your life. Life comes first. I'll just continue. The story continues in the Talmud that the pious person responded with a parable. He said, if you were standing in front of the king, you would obviously ignore all passerbyers. So, and he said, for me, praying is standing before the King of Kings, hence I did not respond to your greeting. The officer was satisfied and let him go on his way. But that, so to speak, the Talmud, they discuss whether this pious individual, was he in violation of endangering his life or not, and the Talmud discusses it, and they say either he simply didn't hear when he was saying that he was telling the Roman officer that I was standing before God, and therefore I didn't respond. He's saying there, I just simply didn't see you, I didn't notice you, or they say that they were able to tell he was able to tell from the Roman officer's voice that he's not gonna hurt him or decapitate him. So, but normally the halacha is that if someone's in prayer, even someone's davening the Amidah in prayer, and he's approached by someone that, if he doesn't respond, will put him in his life in danger, he obviously has to respond and interrupt his prayer. In addition, just a very interesting to point out that he says "V'nishmartem ma'edel nafshisechem." V'nishmartem is also from the same root as shemer. Shemer is a custodian, a guardian, And that's the truth is that we are a custodian for our body. God gave us our body and a soul, and the soul is a custodian of the body to take sure always in as best as health as possible, best possibly situation from a health perspective, and also not taking any risks in general, which we're going to talk about, is included in the same mitzvah, which we want to discuss in this lesson, either today or is is to what degree is a person allowed or not allowed to take risks, which we'll talk about. So, just to summarize, in the eyes of Jewish law, we do not have an ownership claim over our bodies. The body was placed in our trust for the duration of our physical lives, and it is our duty to preserve it and be diligent about its health. And it comes a time we have to return our body to God in the fullest possible measure. So that's it's very, very in stark contrast to secular law. Secular law says you're the owner of your own body, and you can do whatever you wish to your own body and to your own health, as long as you don't infringe on other people's health. So the coronavirus would be a good example where if someone wasn't concerned about contracting the virus, it's all fine and good if he stays home and he stays in quarantine and doesn't come out. But the reality is that a person could be asymptomatic and young and not concerned about contracting the virus, but God forbid, pass the virus on to others that would be at great risk, great danger to contract the virus. So in that case, a person can't say, "Oh, you want to get the virus? I want to get the virus. So be it. I'm going. I'm not concerned. I'm not worried." We have a concern because a person contracting the virus has the ability to pass it forward without even being knowledgeable about it, without having any knowledge whatsoever of having the virus. But in other health hazards, where a person wants to, God forbid, put his life in danger, wants to smoke, not in public areas where it doesn't affect other people, go kill yourself, so to speak, go knock yourself out, and do as you wish, as long as you don't affect others. The only concern we have is straining our system. So if the community has to financially support you once you contract an illness, that's where we're concerned. But if it wouldn't affect us, it wouldn't affect others, and a person wants to not be diligent about his own health, from a secular perspective, there would be no concern. From a Jewish legal perspective, we're not permitted whatsoever to affect our health. We have to be as diligent as possible to protect and prevent our health. Our life is simply not ours. Now we have an obligation to just to be as healthy as possible, and as we'll learn, because we also have a mission in this world, we can't serve Hashem, we can't fulfill our mission if our body is not in its fullest health. Just to touch upon, so we're going to take it to the next level. The next lesson next week, we're going to speak about in this case that we just learned. Based on this case that we just learned, that person has to be diligent about his health, and it automatically leads in to not being permitted to take risks in life, where the risk could be a hazard to a person's health. A person can't take any risks, and then the question becomes: just I'll read the phrase here. Telling someone to avoid all risks is as reasonable as telling someone to live forever. In other words, it's simply not possible. Person gets into the car. There's a risk involved. The person travels. The person and anything a person. Many people just going out, going about, climbing a ladder, going about your day-to-day life involves a certain measure of risks. And the question is, how is it permitted if a person has to be diligent about his health and protect his body and not allowing it to contract any danger whatsoever? And that we will continue, God willing, the coming week, Monday. Look forward to seeing you here tomorrow. We'll continue the tale of two souls. Have a wonderful afternoon, and thank you for joining.